Welcome once again into a bittersweet Inside LAFC podcast. And you all know why. I'm bitter because LAFC defeating the League's Cup final, a gallant effort, navigating through the tournament, but clipping the final hurdle. We'll get into more detail about that. We'll get into the psychology of it because it's some very interesting things to discuss. And we'll need the former player's perspective. And, of course, the sweet part of the show is I get to spend some time with that former player, Steve Beitashour. Let's see those pearly whites, Beta. Oh, yeah, look at that. Look at those chompers, man. Brilliant. If you're listening on audio, just take my word for it. He's got great teeth.
I appreciate it. It's always good to see you. Bittersweet, right? Bittersweet. Obviously, LAFC qualifies for the Champions League, Champions Cup. But unfortunately, I know they wanted to get first place and get their first trophy of the year, and they didn't get that. So a little bittersweet.
Well, yeah, LAFC, that's out of the news cycle. That's what people are saying is that they are not winning the finals. But, to argue that point, making a final is like the way they are doing, getting through tournaments. Anyone will take that. I know you want to win those. I think they're eventually going to come. They came very close to getting it this time around. It just slipped away there in stoppage time. The rest is history. But we'll break down and the path ahead. Do want to mention that later on the show, we'll be joined by Apple TV, CBS Sports Golazo, Turner, he works everywhere, Maurice Edu. And we want to talk to him specifically because he has covered the LAFC games very closely, has had most of the LAFC games here down the stretch with Keith Gostigan. So we'll get his thoughts about what they need to do to get ready for that stretch run. I want to also say, Beta, I watched this game at the watch party, and anyone said that the League's Cup doesn't matter. Wasn't where I was on Sunday. 1,000+ LAFC fans. Beer lines going out the door. I mean, I guess I can tell. I had one beer. It took me 40 minutes to get it. There were so many people there, but it was electric. People were into it. It felt like a Super Bowl party. It was just so many people just wearing black and gold. So people were pumped about it. How did you feel about the final and this tournament now that we put a bow on it?
I was tuned in the whole time, not just the final, but every round. There were certain games that were very intriguing, whether it was Liga MX teams or just big marquee MLS matchups. So it was very fun to watch. I really like this, after 90 minutes, if it's tied, I really like it going to penalties. It just makes it a little juicier, a little more incentive to continue to watch and continue to stay focused to the dying minutes. It's unfortunate for LAFC. I don't know if they kind of took the foot off the gas thinking, all right, we're going into penalties, and then to give up that, 91st minute goal. But overall, it was a fun tournament, and it was very exciting.
And they got a great final. You couldn't ask for more. Maybe the Liga MX teams will participate. And as I've said in the past, Liga MX is not going anywhere. They want to be in this tournament. They want to get in the American market. They want to play here and serve their fans in the United States. So that is 1, 2, 3. Check it off the box. They'll be back. They just need the teams to do better. But this was a great final, great atmosphere. They had the Ohio State marching band. They had I thought there were some really interesting stories. Obviously, Olivier Giroud, who we'll get to in a minute, but the backup, Nicholas Hagen, who was the goalkeeper, the backup, the Guatemalan who got thrust into it, and they had, I think it was family in the stands. It was very cool. And then we talk about this League's Cup game and LAFC. Let's break it down a bit because the last two games, and we talked about them leading into this game, was that Columbus had LAFC's number. We saw the MLS Cup. They were better. LAFC chased the game, made it interesting 2-1, but Columbus clearly the better team. They came here last month and beat LAFC pretty. I was trying to think of a cute way to say it, but they beat them pretty sound, 5-1. This game, LAFC falls behind. Obviously, and Steve Cherundolo talked about it. He goes, it's okay. We were happy to let them have the ball, and they almost made it. And then one little letdown. Otherwise, this game is scoreless. And you can see how LAFC turned the notches, used their depth in the second half. But this showed to me that LAFC can compete with Columbus. It's still tough, home or away, to beat a team like this, which it's got to be frustrating, Beta. When you were there when you were Toronto FC, it was you and the Sounders. Someone was going to win it. It feels like we're in that era here with LAFC Columbus. LAFC are great, but there's that team there that just maybe a notch better, and they're winning the trophies.
Well, we talked about this a few weeks ago, maybe on multiple occasions. Who do we think is going to go all the way to the finals for Leagues Cup? And, we said, I think Columbus and LAFC are the two favorites. Rematch of last year's MLS Cup final. I don't think this is the last time we're going to see them. I think they're, again, favorites to meet up in MLS Cup final again, just because how dominant they are. You can compare them to every other team. I think they're head and shoulders above those other teams. And, unfortunately, Columbus does have the number on LAFC right now. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago about LAFC going to Seattle. Can they beat them again in Seattle? And we're like, no, surely not, right? And it's just one of those things right now. Columbus, they just have the number on LAFC. So, Steve Trundle and the staff, they're going to have some work to do to figure out, what if we meet them again in, when is the final? November, maybe early December. We got to do something different. We got to figure this out because, this time we tried the 3 center backs thing and it's been looking amazing against every other team, but somehow still couldn't get across the line against Columbus. And credit to Columbus. They are a very good team. Some serious firepower. The way they play is entertaining. It's proper football. You enjoy watching them play. So I'm interested to see when that next game is and, who comes out on top of the, what is that going to be, the third time this year?
Bring it on. Yeah. LAFC put in an incredible effort, but I think that's where Columbus won. Little extra buzz about them. And I don't know how they do it because I think at the end of the game, a lot of teams, it's hard to maintain that. But even on the winning goal that was crossed in by Cucho Hernandez, they're running towards the throw-in. They're just going. I don't know how they do it. I've never really seen a team like that. They're just locked in all the time. And LAFC are getting there. And I think it was a great practice to see this team because that is the standard. And you want to be able to match it. And LAFC, I think this is not a wasted practice. The situation of losing finals, I would lose finals. They are, very small margins. They're going to get it. And the fact that they can get through here after losing a final and get back at it again is an incredible testament. The goal is also a big discussion point about what Hugo Lloris should do. And when I first saw it, I was going to be critical of Hugo. And then I watched it and I go, what can you possibly expect him to do? There's a guy in front of him. You're assuming he's going to head it. So in a split second, you're going to say, okay, he's not going to head it and then leave that post open. What is the right way to approach it? I can't imagine there is a right way.
My rookie year, we played in the conference final against the Colorado Rapids in Colorado. So when I was with the Earthquakes, and we lost 1-0 to a very similar goal like that. The outside back cuts in on his weak foot and sends an in-swinger in. And Bush has someone running in, so he thinks he's going to head it. No one touches it, and it goes back post. So at that moment, John Bush. And so in that moment, I'm like, man, if that ever happens again, just get the ball. Don't let it go straight in from just a simple little cross. If they come flying and head it in from, inside the 6, no one's expecting you to save that. But a ball that gets crossed in and an in-swinger that you can just chest down, just trap it, it hurts more to watch that go in than, someone flying in inside the 6 and smashing it, like no one expects you to save that. So for me personally, as a defender, that's what I would have liked to see. Lloris, just don't let that cross go in. If the guy that was running, whoever it was, the forward that runs across it, if he hits it in, he hits it in. No one's expecting you to make this miraculous save. No one's going to blame you. But when you let that cross from Cucho come in from outside the box, that one's a tough pill to swallow. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents there.
And I can't argue that. And I would just think if there's a way to not let that cross come in at that moment of the game, that would have probably been a better intervention. But it happened. It was a freakish goal. If it had gone to penalties, I believe it would have been the first time Hugo had have gone to penalties since the World Cup final in 2022. So that would have been interesting, but it didn't. And here we are. And we have to move forward. And there were some things that were very interesting that came out of this game. I think, obviously, when I saw Olivier Giroud in the lineup, I was a little surprised because we saw that he was still not the Giroud that we had seen when he was wrapping up his career with France and with Milan. Then he comes out at halftime because I figured they make some changes. He didn't. And I was like, oh. And then Steve Trundle clearly knows his team better than anyone because Giroud was involved in the goal. I also saw some really nice. It was a view into what is possible and what Giroud does, and that's with his back to goal. He collects the ball and he'll lay these balls off with his head or his feet. There was a couple glimpses where you're like, that's it. That is how they want him to work in this. But he scored his first goal. He left injured late. I think he'll be okay, and they could lean into him. But this is obviously the beginning. How did you look? And I think it's also great that he got to play a game like this because this integrates him into this team in a very big spot, in a very important game for the club that he was there. So now he feels like he's a member of the club. What are your takeaways from this start, this performance from Olivier Giroud?
You know, I didn't know if Steve Trondolo was going to put him in his first start in a final. It's a tough decision to make. Credit to him, though. I think Olivier looked great. He looked like he was fit. I still think there's a little bit more fitness to come, but they built him up, right? Each game, it goes 50 minutes, 30, 45, 60, and then he'll be 90 fit, before we know it. So it's part of the process. I think, they have an ultimate goal that they want to get him really flying with the team. And so you just have to put him in there. And he didn't hurt the team by any means. But it's always tough when you have a team rolling, whether it's Kamara up top or, if Bogusz is up there, whoever. They've been going really well the last couple months. And so maybe would have liked to see that lineup. But again, it's Giroud, man. This guy, he's incredible. Look at the goal he scores. Look at the goal he scores. Like,
that was a blind header almost. He's just like new.
He gets his positioning. Now he's standing his ground. He's like, okay, this is my area. He doesn't really have to get up because he's just bodying the defender and says, here you go. So strength, he has size. We saw a couple plays where he's flicking the ball in, the goal that gets called back. It's just little things like that. He's so clinical. He's so sharp. He's such a good player. And that's why he's, one of the best attackers in the world because, he's done it for so long. And now I think LAFC is excited to see him, not just in this game in the final, but continue to hopefully contribute in more finals.
And the Leagues Cup is a weird tournament. This is the first time we had it. It was important because you made it to the final, and now the Leagues Cup legacy grows because of this performance. Matchups make a difference. But this was also part to get him in. It just so happened it was a Leagues Cup final to get him ready for this stretch run, which we will talk about in a moment, and achieve those things that we hope that this club can do in the fall and early winter when the MLS season is wrapping up. So this was an important step. And yeah, even like you said, the offside goal on Bogusz, that's just a timing thing that they're going to get down. And you could already, that's going to happen a lot. There's going to be Bogusz or whomever else coming on the side, and they're going to get a gift courtesy of Olivier Giroud.
Absolutely. It'll be good. It'll be fun to watch. But again, bittersweet, but they should still be proud. They qualified for Champions Cup, and so it's not all bad news. I know you wanted to hold that trophy at the end of the day, but Colorado, LAFC, Columbus, those are your three first ones in.
Yeah, the CONCACAF Champions Cup is going to be MLS heavy with all the MLS teams qualifying through Leagues Cup. And that, look, as losing a final, you get something out of it. And finishing second is better than finishing third because you get to advance further along. You don't have to go through so many qualifiers. You can get towards the groups. The Rapids will have to qualify by finishing third. So finishing second has its rewards. And LAFC, you don't leave empty-handed. But that brings us to the next topic and the psychology of sports. And I want to read a tweet from Kai Kamar because every player can relate to this. I'll read it first and I'll give you my thoughts and I'll hand it off to you. The story of second place is you get down on yourself and forget about all the work and joys that got you to the final battle. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. I can't, we just finished the Olympics. We're finishing second and third. You're like, all right, great. I get silver. It's great. You don't get that in this sport. If I finish second in a broadcasting competition, probably means I'm going to get a raise and I'm going to get some good assignments. If you finish second in a sales competition, you're probably getting a brand new car and a watch. If you finish second, it's not a good What is the old? What was the Will Ferrell? You ain't first, you're last.
You ain't first, you last. You're the first loser if you get second.
But
You just want
how do you compartmentalize that? We've saw it with the Western Final. I remember I watched you when you were, and I saw you, and you were a different person. I was like, I'll catch up with you later, Beta. Now's not a good time. You're like, but
Yeah.
how do you deal with that after that whole good vibes, great energy leading up to that game? Everything was great, and then boom.
Yeah, I used to take even just regular season losses really tough, and it was something that I had to work on. But I don't think you can work on it for an MLS Cup final or any final at that. Unfortunately, I have lost in an MLS Cup final in 2016 to Seattle Sounders in penalties, a game which they had 0 shots on target. I think we had somewhere close to 20. Just, one of those games where it should have been 6, 7, 8, nothing, and somehow it's 0-0 and you go to penalties and you lose. So it was tough. I don't know how long it took to get over. It probably you didn't even get over it till the next year. Honestly, it was that tough. Fortunately, and that was because of redemption, right? We won it the next year. So now you felt like, all right, I'm over that loss. And still to this day, I really want that back to back. But anyways, with these guys right now with Leagues Cup, it's tough. I think the best way is just start playing, play right away, and have an opportunity to redeem yourselves, right? Give me another chance at another cup. Let me go win that one. And then you kind of forget about the last one. But when you're that close, you put all this work in, not just during the season. It's, the off season preparation for the upcoming season. It's the preseason, all the double days, the grind. A lot of times you don't even see a ball. You're just running and trying to get fit. And then every single week, every single day, the things you do to keep your body healthy and keep yourself performing at such a high level that, quite frankly, fans probably don't even know about. And then you get to the final and you just want to win. Like, you'll give anything just to win, and you lose. You come up that short, and 91st minute goal conceded. It's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow. I feel so bad for all the players, and it's the game for you. That's why we play the game. Sometimes, I'm not going to say they weren't the better team, but sometimes the better team doesn't win. Sometimes the game's not fair. But that's why we play. That's why we love sports in general. So, yeah.
I have so much respect for the athletes that have to put themselves through it, because there's nothing else that finishing second, you don't get rewarded except in a situation like this. You were fortunate enough to get that reprieve and win the trophy, but a lot of people don't. A lot of, years go by, nothing is guaranteed. We've talked, by the way, this is being recorded before the Open Cup, so you probably know the result. But to your point, LAFC gets a chance to get back on the field. They went directly from Columbus to Seattle. So hopefully that works out. We'll find out together here, but on our next pod, we'll talk about it. And then they get back into the MLS season this weekend, Saturday, against the Houston Dynamo. So they'll get a chance to taste it. They're on the road. I'm sure they're eager to get home. And they have to wake up, like Kai and that, I'm sure, went to bed and wake up and they open their Instagram, or they go on a Google search and it's Columbus celebrations. That's no fun, right? You can't avoid that stuff, right?
Well, and that's part of it, which probably makes it even tougher because of social media. Obviously, you always have your text messages from your friends and family coming in before the game. Good luck. We're so proud of you. You're doing amazing. All these things. And then when you lose, silent, nothing. You win, it even more. 2, 3, 4 times more messages. We're so proud of you. You did amazing. We knew you could do it. All this fun stuff. And, you're hyped up. You're celebrating. You lose. It's complete opposite. Nobody says a word. Some people probably rude remarks. Maybe you should have done this better. You should have done that better. Like, man, these guys gave it their all. They gave it their all.
They did.
It's the sport for you. It's a sport. So it's tough. It's tough in all aspects.
And talking to the supporters at the watch party at Fields LA there in Level Up, they got it too. I mean, it was a punch in the stomach, but they knew that team gave it their all. I don't think there's any doubt about it. If it was you and me, I wouldn't text you afterwards anything. I figured you'd want to be the last thing you need is to read, "Hey man, keep your head up, Max." You're like,
yeah. Yeah, it's tough.
So we gotta dust ourselves off, pick ourselves up, dust ourselves up, get back at it. You said the one trophy. There's 4 trophies. We got to get the one. Maybe it's Open Cup. Maybe it's MLS Cup. Maybe it's more than one. I don't know. but it's not going to be 4. We know that now. And they got to get ready for the MLS stretch run. And this is, part of what they are doing. They're happy about Leagues Cup. They've gotten into CONCACAF Champions Cup, but they want to finish this. And I had a good look at what's in front of them. They have 10 games to go. They are in a good position to win the West. Miami is 8 points up or 9 points up on them. Miami, for the Supporter Shield, has played 2 extra games. So it's not crazy. I mean, if they keep winning the games, then they'll be in position to win the West and win the Supporter Shield. With regards to the West, the Galaxy are 5 points up on them, but they have played 3 extra games. So I think if my math is right, LAFC control their destiny. I'm going to put this out there because I watched the Galaxy. They brought Marco Royce in. He had a goal and assist. I don't see the Western Conference. You were mentioning it's going to be LAFC Columbus. I don't see any team finishing ahead of LAFC and Galaxy. Now, it could change in the postseason. The only team I really think has a shot to beat either of those two in the playoffs is the Timbers if they can get hot. It's not going to be the Sounders, I don't think. Real Salt Lake have some issues all of a sudden. And everyone else, there's a gap. I feel it, which is going to make some uncomfortable because I think we're going to have a Western Conference final all LA, which will be huge for the league, but I don't know what's going to do to this city. It's going to be bananas. But how do we, you have a lot on your plate if you're LAFC. You can get the Supporter Shield. You want to get the best possible playoff positioning. How do you prepare for this stretch after the busy Cup week?
You rotate. You get guys minutes, guys who maybe aren't playing all the time, sprinkle them in, keep them fresh, keep them fit so that if something happens towards the end before the very important playoffs, at least these guys are confident, they're fit, they've played games, because the last thing you want to do is run a certain group to the ground and then either they get hurt or, if they get injured, then other guys aren't fit and confident and kind of meshed with the rest of the group. So you want to keep the whole group as a whole together and playing well. So, right now, I think they've been doing that. You see a lot of rotations going on. You see different formations going on. So we're in that final stretch. And obviously seeding is very important. You want that home field advantage. But again, you mentioned, I can't really see anybody finishing atop LAFC. I still think they're going to finish first in the West, but it's going to be a tight race over there. Who comes out of the East? I still think it's either Columbus or Miami. I just think they're just so much better than all the other teams over there. They're so good. They're fun to watch. It's entertaining football. And that's again, similar to what I see with LAFC. I just don't see that really with other teams. But I did joke around about this earlier. Once playoffs come around, if Colorado gets into penalty kicks, my money's on them for penalties. So they could really go far and make it to the finals if they keep doing what they did in Leagues Cup. I think they won 3 penalty shootouts. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
Interesting. I forgot to mention them, but they've had a great season. They got a CONCACAF Champions Cup, so great job by everyone there. So I think there's 2 more road games for LAFC in their final 10. So it's like, was it 6 and 4? 6 away, 4 at home. So, I mean, a game against the Dynamo, you certainly want to get that. Then they have the Dynamo away the following Saturday. And then September the 14th, it is Galaxy LAFC at Dignity Health Sports Park, where LA Galaxy have not lost this season. And then a midweek game against Austin at home. So that wraps up your September. There's some there's 2 more September games. But there's going to be some international breaks here and there. But it's a weird sensation, Beta, because you finish the Leagues Cup, you feel like there's some closure there, and then you get the MLS season. You're not picking up the MLS season halfway. 10 games. You have a lot in comparison to other teams, but you can't kind of like ease into that, right?
No, and you would like a little bit of a break, but I think you want that break more so if you had won Leagues Cup and you're hosting the trophy, and it's a different scenario now. You lost. I think the best thing for the guys, for the team, is go right away. Let's go try to, get a victory. Obviously you mentioned it earlier, Open Cup trophies on the line. You already got the Champions League spot covered, but it's a trophy that LAFC hasn't won yet, right? Open Cup, still trying to get that. And so they're gonna be going after it. And I think it's good for them to have it so close to the last game.
So the best goal is, I think, realistically, maybe you don't get Supporter Shield, but finish first in the West, so that if there is that LAFC Galaxy game, it's at BMO Stadium, where you're obviously history has proven, and you've been in a lot of those Galaxy LAFC games, what a difference it makes. And 2 big playoff games in the past. I know I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I feel very confident in this. But you really improve your chances
just
here.
A little ahead of yourself. That's all right.
That's what I think that has to be the message, right? Let's finish first in the West.
It is. Yeah, it is. Beginning of the season, some teams do it, some teams don't, but you put down your goals. Some teams are very ambitious and they have very crazy goals. In 2017 with Toronto FC, we had crazy goals. We were fortunate to hit them. But other teams, it's like, hey, make the playoffs, or hey, host the playoff spot, or finish top 3 in the West. There's different goals, or win a trophy, win an Open Cup, win something. So every team has goals, and I'm sure that's one of them that you mentioned.
Right. And I say Supporter Shield is great, but LAFC has won it. Winning new trophies are important just for the variety of it all.
Yeah.
But since you got
the better in the trophy case, you want one of each.
Oh, that's nice. What's that one? But it's you've got the CONCACAF Champions ticket. You've got it. So now you focus really on MLS Cup. Supporter Shield, if it's there, without question, but you find a way to do that. So disappointing week, but a good news. I mean, I guess this is good for the psychology too. It's not the end of the season. We still have a lot to go for, and we will start off with that, Beta. Hopefully, we're having it's been our first tough show in a while. It's been all unicorns and rainbows for the last couple months.
Yeah, it has. It really. I don't know the last time we had a talk like this. And you know what's funny? It's still not. It's not terrible. It's you qualify for Champions League. Like, it's still a good thing if you started off the season or the Champions or the Leagues Cup, you hadn't played a single game yet. You'd be like, hey, if you don't have to play a single one of these games, we're going to give you a Champions League spot. They take it, right?
Yeah.
So it's
a great way to look at it.
It's not bad. It's not. Look at Colorado. They were celebrating like crazy, like they should be. They just qualified for Champions League. They got 3rd place. LAFC finished higher. They finished 2nd, and they're so sad and just devastated over here. So it's just a funny dynamic, the game. So it is what it is.
Well, the ones who have to feel rotten is Philadelphia, going through all that Leagues Cup and finishing 4th. That's what you don't want to do.
That's what you don't want. That.
So LAFC fans, you didn't finish 4th.
Yes.
So Ricky Bobby was wrong. So there we go. We will move forward. Good stuff, Beta. Thanks for helping get everyone off the mat again as we move forward to a busy week, back to MLS Cup play. We are not done here. We'll be joined by one of the great voices of Apple and Fox and so many other channels. It is Maurice Edu joining us next here on Inside LAFC Podcast. Inside LAFC Podcast is presented by Freeway Insurance. Driving savings. We are back here on Inside LAFC Podcast. Great to have back a man you have seen on Apple TV. You have seen him also on the coverage this summer of Copa America and the Euros with Fox. You'll see him on CBS Golazo. He also runs a car dealership in Fontana 5 days a week. So if you need a good
Don't I wish?
I figured I'll just keep going. Mo Edu, everybody.
And I had no plans to stop you there. If that hadn't been, if you had said anything else but a car dealership, I would have just ran with it. But you know what? Now you got me thinking. Maybe that's my next investment, a car dealership. Let's see.
Yeah, just practice this line. What do I have to do to get you to leave in this car? Well, I don't know if I said that correct, but something along those lines.
No. I won't be actively working on it. I don't have time. Trust for that.
Once you get it started, you got to be hands-on, and you'll carry it out. You take it from there. Then you can pass it on. But you need 6 months, feet on the ground there.
It's all about delegation, baby. Get the right people in place, trusting people who are competent. Boom.
Far be it from me to tell you anything differently, because Mo is doing great. If you've been listening to LAFC lately, you have been hearing Keith Costigan and Mo a fair bit, as they've had a really close eye on this club, certainly through the Leagues Cup. And now the Leagues Cup and these cup games from this week are behind us. Mo the job. And this is a unique circumstance because no league does this, where you have this tournament inside, and now you got to get back to these 10 games starting against the Houston Dynamo this Saturday, on what LAFC needs to do to move forward. And from where you saw them, and you've seen all these games up to now, where how good of a position are they in, or where do you think some tinkering needs to take place for this team to prepare for that stretch run?
Where do I think they are? I think this LAFC side are very well positioned. Now, of course, there's going to be disappointment, sad faces, and a little bit of frustration to lose another game to Columbus Crew, and then to lose another final to them as well on the road. So that's normal. That's normal for players, coaches, fan base, everyone associated with the club to have that sentiment. But your mind's got to shift very quickly. This is a team and a club that since day one, and you've been there since then, has been ambitious in everything that they do, whether it's player signings, whether it's coaches signings, the way that they built their stadium, built the fan base. Everything about this team was with the target of filling a trophy cabinet with trophies. And so the other part about LAFC is they've done well to keep themselves in competition. So they have to turn their head quickly because they have a game tonight against Seattle, right? They have an Open Cup semifinal now in quest to now win another trophy. So their heads have to turn quickly, but where are they positioned? I think they're well positioned because the run through Leagues Cup show that they are very versatile tactically to play in a different formation throughout the course of that tournament, to introduce two new pieces that could be influential, to welcome back two new pieces in Lewis O'Brien and Olivier Giroud, to welcome back what almost feels like a new signing in Timothy Tillman back into the fray as well. You're now getting into the home stretch of the season as close to full strength as possible. And now you still have time to integrate properly Olivier Giroud into this team, into this setup. So now you have more top-end talent. With top-end talent, that now means you have more depth as well. And so I look at this LAFC side and still think that they will be one of the top teams coming out of the Western Conference, and call me a fool, probably playing at another MLS Cup final.
Against the Crew. And Max, I mean, realistically, right? Like, I know they have 2 games in hand. What is it? 9 points off of Inter Miami in the Supporters Shield race. I was just telling you, I was just doing a different show before this, and we were having this conversation. Inter Miami probably are more likely to win MLS Cup because it would take other teams being perfect and them dropping points. Supporters Shield.
I'm sorry, yeah, Supporters Shield. Yeah, sorry, correct me. To win Supporters Shield because they're in pole position, and it would take them dropping points and other teams almost being perfect to eclipse them. But the motivation that LAFC will have after losing to Columbus on the road, to me, would factor into that. Because now if they can go on, put together another consistent stretch of games and somehow leapfrog Inter Miami and win Supporters Shield, that means they're hosting. That means they're hosting throughout the playoffs. And you and I remember the last time that LAFC hosted MLS Cup, what happened? That was probably the difference maker between two really elite teams that year, LAFC and Philadelphia Union.
I was going to ask you this later, but since you brought it up, let's get into it, and we can talk about some of the player stuff in a moment. So they do have 2 games on Inter Miami. So LAFC has 10 games remaining. Inter Miami has 8. Inter Miami are at 56 points. LAFC are 9 points back. So it's a tough one. Then you have the Galaxy are 5 points ahead of LAFC, but LAFC have 3 games in hand over the Galaxy there. So, I mean, I think I agree with you. The Supporter Shield is probably out of reach because Inter Miami, we would imagine, expect at some point the return of Lionel Messi, but they've been great without him. So what kind of goals can we expect? Because I know you had the Galaxy game this weekend. I watched that, and I tweeted afterwards and said I don't see any team stopping these two from finishing first and second, and perhaps meeting in a Western Conference final down the road. It's I think the Timbers are the only team, I mentioned that to Beta, that could probably break that up. But that's going to be important when you say that. If it is in fact these two teams, whoever could eventually host a final game there is going to have a much better chance of making that MLS Cup. How do you see that race? I mean, and I know it's so much to go, and I know we have to look at the games, and the opponents matter, certainly. But with what LAFC has, what the Galaxy has, how do you see that run in? if in fact we agree that maybe the supporter shield not out of reach, but could be a bridge too far.
I mean, I agree with you, and then I think in the Western Conference, LAFC, LA Galaxy are the two best teams, and both teams made improvements in this last window. Obviously, LAFC bringing in Olivier Giroud, Lewis O'Brien, and the Galaxy, their star piece being Marco Reus, who had an instant impact in his debut game, right? And so I look at that next game, the next El Traffico, right, as being so significant. Exactly. September 14 and being so significant in determining how this thing actually shapes up. The beauty for LAFC is they have games in hand on LA Galaxy, but the other side to that coin is you still have to win those games. So Galaxy will feel confident because they already have the points on the board, and LAFC still have to make up those points. But I think these two teams are probably when you talk about top end talent, they are right there in terms of the attacking pieces that they have. Probably lean a little bit towards LAFC in terms of having more depth, but the Galaxy have added depth to their team as well. So I'm right there in alignment with you. I look at it, the two LA sides as being the best in the West. The numbers say it, the standings show it, but ultimately the eye test for me also shows it.
It feels like heading into the sweetest spot of this rivalry because both teams are so good. I mean, we're coming off this. We work for Apple, and pushing this league and this agenda is important because you want eyeballs. And that Columbus LAFC game helps because you felt like it was a big occasion. It was. I was at that watch party. It felt like a big occasion. Galaxy hosting LAFC September 14th. Can we chalk that up as another one? Big occasion, getting the eyeballs.
1,000%. And even better, I'm going to be there for that. So hell yeah, we can chalk it up as
so it'll be you and Keith on the call.
Be me and Keith. So
wear something black, maybe a little gold tie.
I'll be there unbiased as usual, you know.
Yeah.
No, but honestly, for all the reasons that everyone is pretty aware of in terms of the way that this rivalry from day one caught fire, right? It's even better now when both teams are good, when both teams are competing for something. Not just being the best in the West, but there's still that little slim chance that they're both still in contention to win Supporters Shield. So, and now you have star power. You had star power already on both sides, but now you have even, I guess, a higher tier of star power with Marco Reus on one end, Olivier Giroud, Hugo Lloris as well on the same side. It's must-see TV. If you're, you know what I'll say, if you're introducing someone to the game, this is a game, especially in the States, that you want them to watch. This is a game that you want them to see. And if they can be in attendance, even better, because these games, whether it's at BMO Stadium, whether it's at Dignity Health Sports Park, these games are always must-see TV. Both teams, both fan bases exude that passion that you need to really make a rivalry feel special. And again, the fact that both teams are having success this season just adds even more fuel to the fire.
It's going to be intense. And again, the Galaxy have lost one home game. That was to LAFC, but that was at the Rose Bowl. This is a Dignity Health Sports Park. So I can't imagine what they're going through. It's going to be an incredible event. And if LAFC can get that, I think that would prove probably who will finish first. I think it probably comes down to that game.
Yeah.
I would tend to say whoever finishes first is probably going to MLS Cup. So I don't want to make it any bigger, but I think I just did.
Yeah, and I don't see many people disagreeing with you. I definitely don't. And that's no disrespect to other teams in the West because Seattle's putting together a decent run. Colorado, what a season and turnaround that they've had. I wouldn't be surprised if Colorado could maybe even leapfrog RSL. But the West, the top four teams in the West, top five, I would say, have really done well over the course of. Some teams have started off slow and had to rebound and build on into this position. Seattle being one of those teams. Portland, they're sitting 7th right now. They're sneaky good because of their game-changing talent that they have as well. The only thing that I think could prove to be tricky for them is if they can't climb higher in the table playing on the road, right? Just three wins on the road so far this season, but some high-end talent on their team as well. But I look at the top two. I look at LAFC and I look at Galaxy as being my favorites to be lifting the Western Conference title and then being an MLS Cup.
Historically, anything can happen in the playoffs. But even though LAFC was the 3 seed, it wasn't a surprise. Columbus, I think, was a 4 seed last year. It wasn't a surprise. But if those top teams finish higher, I think we anticipate it. But crazy things can happen. And if the Galaxy win September 14th, I don't want to say LAFC can't. I think they could win down the road in the playoffs. They've been so good in the postseason, but they'll likely have to go on the road to do it. Let's talk about how LAFC is preparing for the stretch run. And we talk, the big ticket item, Olivier Giroud. And the integration, we saw him a little bit in Leagues Cup, and then we saw him start in the final. I think some people were surprised to see if he was ready. I was a little surprised, but as we saw, he came up with the goods, had some nice plays. Just what have you seen from him, and how you expect that integration to continue? Because I guess it would appear that he is going to lock down that starting spot, even though there's a lot of competition. But we also have seen the talent, certainly in that Leagues Cup, of what he can do.
I mean, I'm biased in this conversation because I'm an Arsenal fan, right? So I had the pleasure of witnessing Olivier Giroud have success and be a special player for many years. But what he is he's a finisher. But beyond that, and you mentioned it, during Leagues Cup, you saw little glimpses of it, right? Whether it's his running off the ball in and around the 18, his clever flicks, his hold-up play, obviously his aerial threat. That's how he gets his first goal for the club. His timing and his sharpness in terms of thinking, right? So sometimes it's movement to bring a defender to create space for, let's say, Bouanga to make a run in behind. Sometimes it's drawing a defender. Like there was a play against, I think it was a Columbus game where he has the flick onto Matty Bogusz. Bogusz scores, he's offside. But like those little movements, that understanding and feel for the game, it just kind of highlights what kind of player he is. He's a high-level player, and he's a very, very accomplished finisher. And we're just seeing this much of it so far, right? He's only, as you mentioned, he's played sparingly. They've managed his minutes properly in terms of using League Cup almost as a preseason to get him really geared up and ready to fit into this LAFC side, which I don't think will be a problem whatsoever. I'm excited to see his partnership with Bouanga continue to flourish and develop. And I remember the first game during Leagues Cup when he came off the bench, there was a couple moments where Bouanga just overhits the pass as Olivier Giroud's making a run into the box, and maybe that could have led to his first goal. But those are two players, and talking to Steve Trundle, he's mentioned it in training. They're constantly looking for each other, constantly looking to combine. So as that continues and starts to take shape even more so on the pitch in the big games, it's only going to lead to LAFC having more success, Giroud getting more goals, Bouanga getting more goals and assists, and ultimately this side having more success and having a different threat. You talk about the competition at the number 9 spot. Listen, Olivier Giroud is brought in to be the number 9. Like everyone else is just going to be a supporting piece. But this is a group that, while they're competitive, they all want to start, they all want to play. They know that their role and their time is going to come at certain points. A guy like Kai Kamara, right? What he's done whenever he's been given a chance to start or come off the bench, he comes in and he's a dog. He's going to compete for every ball. He's going to put himself out there. He's always a team first type player in the sense that he's going to do whatever it takes to benefit this team. Matty Bogusz now, if he's playing in a different position, Kike Oliveira. So you start to look at the pieces that Steve Trundle has at his disposal to really make this thing work. And again, from a tactical standpoint, they now have flexibility. They can play in a 4-3-3, a 3-4-3. So you have different options and different ways to win games.
It's the Olivier Giroud conversation. We kept hearing how he makes teammates better, but like you said, these glimpses you can see with the Matty Bogusz offside goal and just the timing for Denny Bouanga, that's a big part of his game. He's like, don't give me the ball, I'm going to score goals. I think we're going to see that. Hopefully we'll see a fair bit of it in the final 10. I want to ask you about something you brought up, and it's going to answer a bigger question about the rotation of players, because you mentioned Kai Kamara, Christian Oliveira comes off the bench, Timothy Tillman comes off the bench, Eddie Segura comes off the bench. Guys that all could start for most teams, but they're playing here. From a player's perspective and being part of that, both sides of the ball, being a starter and creating an environment where everyone knows that they have a role and keeping them engaged, and also being a guy who could be a starter and wanting to get as many minutes, but knowing that this is a role I might have to embrace, and I want to do it well. It might be 20 minutes. I might start a game here, may not start all the games. How do you manage that?
scenario you just described is one of the most difficult ones for a manager. It really is. And no, but honestly speaking, whenever I get a chance to talk to these managers who have successful groups, and I say groups because that's what it is, I ask that question, like how do you keep guys fully engaged? How do you keep guys' heads from turning and saying, hey, I want to get a trade or I want to get sold to a different club because I'm pursuing different minutes? And that's naturally going to happen because in any group, players are at different places in their careers, in their lives, in their ambitions. But the biggest thing for me that I've experienced when I was playing was that transparency, right? And that openness and then also rewarding players when they are given the chance. So when you look at this group of players, for example, with LAFC, I mean, the first 11, let's say the first 11 from that game against Columbus, they know that there's guys nipping at their heels. They know that they have to put in a performance because nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is given. Nothing can be taken for granted. That if you're the striker, you have Kai Kamara coming off the bench. If you're Matty Bogusz, for example, Kike Oliveira is sitting there waiting in the wings to come in and put in a shift. The two that started in midfield, Ilie and Atuesta, well, we just signed Lewis O'Brien, right? His quality. Timothy Tillman's been out injured. His quality, and when he's fit, he's usually starting. So having that competitive spirit, but then also having reached success is usually the part that really keeps a group together, because you feel a part of something, you feel bought in, what it felt like to reach the pinnacle, and you're constantly chasing that feeling yet again.
Yeah, and I didn't mention Lewis O'Brien. He was the first guy off the bench. I mean, he was the first sub in the League's Cup final, so that's a big one. From what you've seen, is it that collective nature? Is it evident? It's evident with LAFC, and I mean, everyone seems on board from what you've seen when people coming in and out. I know it's impossible to judge, but just to see how these guys approach these roles.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is from afar, but then it also is. I've had a couple chats with a few different guys, and everyone kind of echoes that same kind of, and you hear it all the time about like, oh, every club is a family and this and that, but you truly get that sense, right? Like there seems to be a healthy competitive spirit amongst the group, which you need. But then when they get on the field, to me, that's the biggest sign of something off the pitch is trending in the right direction, because you see how it manifests and translates onto the pitch, right? And that's impressive. The best clubs in the world usually have that kind of brotherhood spirit, but that competitive ethos as well, because you need that. As soon as they always use the phrase iron sharpens iron. As soon as you start straying away from that, as soon as things start to get a little bit too individual or selfish, that could easily be the cancer that leads to a team falling short. But from what I've seen, from the conversations I've had with guys who are part of the group, it seems to be a really healthy environment, and an environment that's going to allow you not only to flourish individually, but collectively and have more success.
I'm glad I asked that, because I see it and I acknowledge it, but you never know, maybe it's the surface, but I genuinely think it's authentic. And now you're in the stretch run. Everyone's like, this is it. This is what we worked so hard for. Let's go for it. Good stuff, Mo. And thanks for breaking the news about the game on the 14th. We look forward to. That's
maybe I shouldn't have done that, but oops.
I think it'll be made public very soon. But we like to break news here. But that's an exciting day, and we can't wait. I mean, I look, obviously some results don't go your way, but being an LAFC supporter, you just get, or a fan, or just even a neutral, it's just always big occasion, and that's a testament for what the club is doing. And you've had a front row seat to it all, my friend.
Amen. Bring me more finals, just bring me more finals that involve teams that like to play, that have attractive players in terms of the quality that they bring. So if you're going to give me another rematch of LAFC Columbus, if you want to give me, I don't know, LAFC Galaxy, you want to give me LAFC, just bring it on.
I think you're going to get it. I think we're heading to an exciting time of matchups where there's a good ruling class in the league, which is exciting. Mo Edu, Apple TV, Fox, and CBS. Not the car dealership yet. That was a joke, but you'll see him a lot here pretty soon. And make sure you get out LAFC taking on the Houston Dynamo. Just 4 regular season games left in MLS, so get your chance if you haven't. Check LAFC.com for whatever tickets remain, because it's going to be a festive environment indeed. I'll be on the call for that one, so excited to be around the peeps. And we will see Mo Edu here on your TV screens very soon. Thanks, Mo. See you soon.
Appreciate it, my man. Later.
That's all the time we have. Thanks to Mo. Thanks to Beta. We'll be back next week to recap an insane week, and LAFC prepares for the next big stretch run.